So the SD-90 has two players in it. These are basically two sound engines that can be independently operated and controlled and can play MIDI files wave, MP3s, and the style engine concurrently, any two of them concurrently. So you sort of have to pay attention and you have to keep track of what they mean, whether the lights are solid or whether they're blinking. And so I thought we could talk about that a little bit today. So in its most primitive form, let me show you, give you an example here of what the lights do. So if I press the media button and I go into and I select disk edit. Disk edit is modal. That means that feature stays on now until you turn it off. So you'll see that the media light is solid red. So that means that I am in the context of what I'm doing, I'm working in the disk edit environment. So that's great. That all works, right? Now, you'll see here now all of a sudden that it's blinking, right? When it blinks, that tells you that you're trying to utilize the some other mode of the SD-90, right? You want to play a style, you want to play the player, but there's something going on in background with the media environment, right? And when you have disk edit checked, by the way, you can't do anything else, right? That's made for copying, renaming, moving, and many of the file system functions that are associated with the SD-90. So if I forget that and I just happen to go down and let's say I go into my play box and I want to play a song and I go to click on it, it's not going to play. Well, that's correct because the media light is blinking, which tells me that I'm in the context of something related to media functions, right? And I'd have to press that and go in. Now you see the media light solid, so that tells me my active state is currently related to the media functions, and I can turn that disk edit off. Okay, so that's one example of where you got to be a little bit careful. And the other one comes from when you play styles. So if I were to play a style, let's go ahead and pick a style. I'll pick 16 ballad, and I play it, and it plays fine, right? But let's say I want to also load an MP3. So I press player 1, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load this MP3. Now, the player 1 light is lit. And that means that I'm allowed to start this because player 1 is the active context for which my panel controls function, right? So if I press play, whoops, sorry. I apologize, I had the volume down. So if I press play, that MP3 begins to play. If I press start, it stops. But what if I want to start the style? Well, I have to go over, I either have to turn the player off or I have to press the style button. If I press the style button, right, now I'm back over here to style. And if I press the start button, it operates. If I want to go back, you'll see here now that I'm going to go ahead and play this MP3. Okay, now I'm playing the MP3. Player 1 is lit. But now while that's playing, I want to play the style. So I'll go back and I'll be in style mode. But you'll see player 1 is blinking. Right? So that tells me something is happening on player 1. Right? I may not see it, and my context of my front panels aren't associated with player 1. I'm going to lower that volume a little bit. Right? Okay. So now if I wanted to stop player 1, I can't stop it because I have no way. My front panels are not in the context of that player. I'm in the context of the style because the style light is solid red, right? If I go ahead and start the style and I go back to the player, you'll see that the style light blinks. Now I'm in the context of the player, so I should be able to stop the MP3, and I can't. And you'll see that the style is playing. However, my panel buttons don't do anything because player 1 is solid red, which tells me that my panel button start and stop and my context for which I'm operating is related to player 1, not to style. So for me to now be able to stop that style, I would need to highlight the style button so that it becomes solid red. Now when I press the stop or start button, I'm going to control the style. So you have to be a little careful in paying attention to, when I disengage the style, my player 1 light turns on. So the context of now what I'm operating in is my player, right? So I can load, I can go back, I can load different songs, and I can play things in the context of MIDI or MP3s or WAV or whatever else I want. If I want to get back to the style, I either have to turn off player 1, which will immediately turn the style indicator solid red, right? Or I could press the style button, which immediately disables player 1, right? But once I do something and have something running in the background, such as the style, right? And then I attempt to go to one of the other players. You'll see I'm going to press player 1 now. You'll see the style button blinks. So that tells me that there's something in the style section that's running, right? But my controls, my interactive controls relative to my screen, the start, stop, and other things are related to what's solid red, which is going to be the player. So if I press exit, I'm going to be going through my media section to be able to see what I can play. Here I should be able to load a multi-track. Here is, so you'll see I just started that song because the player 1 function was solid red and my style. And I can fade, by the way, with these two sliders, right? So this is my player 1, okay, and this is my player 2, or in this case, the style engine. So I have the ability to use both and fade in and out between them. So if I press stop right now, what will happen is my style indicator is blinking, so I'm not in the context of the style. It's going to stop the player, so I'm going to press stop. You'll see that the player stopped. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start that again. Okay. Wait, I want to make sure you can hear it. There it goes. Okay. Now, if I want to stop the style, I got to make sure the style context is active and make sure the style indicator is solid red. So I'll go ahead and press that. Okay. And you'll see that the player 1 function is blinking. But now when I press stop, I'll be controlling the style. Now you see the style stopped. All I have is now the player playing. Again, if I want to go back and manipulate the player, I got to press player 1 so that it becomes solid. Okay? And when you see something like this where the player and the style are both solid, it's whichever one you press last, because there was nothing running in the style section. See that? So, style. I can even pause the style, right? I can go back, engage player 1. I can start player 1. Now my style is paused, but if I press the pause button, it's not going to do anything because the context of which I'm operating is the player. The player is not paused. So I have to go back and press style. Now that tells me that, okay, I'm in the style context. That pause button is now going to pause that style, and I have something playing in the player 1 background because the player button is flashing. So you'll see I just stopped the style. I'll go ahead and press player 1, or I could disengage the style, and then I could press stop, and that kills everything. A little bit confusing, but I hope it's something that will at least make you start thinking about paying attention to what the status lights do, what lights are lit up, because sometimes you will believe, or it will appear as though the SD-90 is not responding to you or responding to something that you're attempting to ask it to do, but many times it's because you're in the wrong context. And so you're trying to stop the style, or you're trying to start the style, and you're saying it's not working, but it'll be because you're in the context of one of the players, and that's why it doesn't happen. So I hope some of this in some way helps. with a better understanding of what the red LEDs do and what the blinking versus non-blinking means.